Parliament has released the 2025 Register of Parliamentary Members' Financial Interests and Other Benefits. Due to the nature of their jobs, MPs are required to disclose financial interests such as shares and other financial interests in companies and other corporate entities. Remunerated employment or work outside of Parliament, directorships and partnerships, consultancies and retainerships, sponsorships, gifts and hospitality, as well as interest-free loans, all have to be declared. Let's talk now to Program Manager at the Public Service Accountability Monitor, Zukiswa, Kota. A very good afternoon to you, Zukiswa. Thanks very much for your time. Just overall, your observations, what additional financial interests are MPs required to disclose besides those that were initially listed?
Yeah, thanks, Vio, and thanks for the conversation. I didn't pick up if you did also list just things as basic as gifts and overseas trips, which also should make it onto the register of interests. The other list or items, the relevant code of ethics, which is what members should rely on or should depend on to understand what they should declare, also outlines that where members are uncertain of whether or not something should be declared, they should err on the side of caution and act in good faith and declare it anyway. So there's a long list, but certainly amongst those are some of the things that we might consider quite mundane or quite unimportant.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen quite strange declarations. I mean, previously where a person would make the declaration and we would ask, was that even necessary? Perhaps the question then to ask is what the point of this whole exercise is to begin with.
So that's an important question. There are instances where we might consider certain declarations inane, but I think the point is that in order to increase the levels of trust between the public and those that, and our elected representatives, and in order to ensure that as far as possible, there is insights into where the risks are, where public officials, or rather where public interests may coincide or may clash with private interests, and in this instance, potentially whether it's about members being bribed or any kinds of lobbying and so on, it does become particularly important. So even while someone might declare something that seems relatively inane, one of the things that perhaps is a limitation to an extent of the register is that it isn't possible at this point, and in fact there isn't a requirement for all of the declarations to be further pursued or to be further investigated and interrogated. The code does make space for lifestyle audits, but even then the risk assessment contains itself to particular senior members of the National Assembly or senior members of Parliament. And so there too, there is a bit of a limitation. But of course, it is important to consider how far and how deep any real investigations could go. But in essence, it should be that any loopholes can be avoided. So the interesting question, or the question that you raise, is interesting in the sense that where there might be a declaration, for instance, of a leather coat, which in fact I think is one of the declarations on the list this year or this quarter. That is an example of something that does seem, not to be particularly risk worthy or worthy of kind of being included on a risk register or a risk assessment. But the point is that very often there are loopholes, that may be created. There are things that may be missed if there isn't a further interrogation of such gifts. And maybe that gift, for instance, I think that the point is made, but in essence, it really is to ensure that elected representatives, as far as possible, are able to declare where any potential conflicts of interest may be, and where their private interests may really essentially clash with their duties as elected representatives. So it is an important, the register of MPs' financial interests is important. I think it's important to stress that, but of course there are limitations and there are ways in which it could be potentially enhanced and its robustness deepened.
Indeed, I mean, if allegations that have surfaced from your state capture inquiries are anything to go by, those who are determined to beat the system would, in fact, do so.
Without a doubt. So amongst the work that is of interest to me, for instance, is work to deepen both in just regionally, but deepen the degree to which information is made publicly available, but also that information is shared in formats that are easy to search, in ways that categories become easier and easier to engage with, and so it is one positive development is this move towards the e-declarations that Parliament has begun to do, and so in that regard, that is a positive step towards increasing the transparency, increasing the degree to which that information can be closely or more closely scrutinized. But as you say, Vuyo, there are ways, and I think often the ways to evade and avoid scrutiny is by ensuring that there's a sense of opacity, or that, for instance, the formats in which these publications or these registers are made open is a bit confusing, where the categories are not uniform, where it's not easy, for instance, to kind of simply chuck in a search in an Excel format and you can have the outcome immediately, or have categories that are clear, that are easy to search. So this is a step in the right direction, in recognition, in fact, of the fact that open data and that kind of openness and publication of information is fundamental. But again, there can be further to go. One of those is precisely that the risk assessment really shouldn't be limited, even noting the practicalities, shouldn't be limited to the most senior or a set range of actors or representatives within the National Assembly.
In fact, Parliament believes that by introducing the digital system, they have actually helped this process. More and more people have become compliant, and it's a lot more efficient than it has ever been, certainly, according to Parliament. Let's leave it there for now. Zukiswa, Kota, thank you very much for your time. This is from the Public Service Accountability Monitor.